The storm outside the office had been brewing for hours, but no one expected it to break at the exact moment everything else did. The city trembled under the weight of thunder as the CEO, Aiden Grant, stared out the glass windows of the 42nd floor, replaying the numbers, the deadlines, the chaos of a company on the brink. But even in that pressure, something else tugged at him, something quieter, something human, something he didn't yet understand. It began with a soft knock on his office door, barely audible over the rain. But it wasn't the knock that froze him, it was the trembling voice that followed, a voice far too small to belong in a place like this. A child whispered through the crack of the door, saying she was sorry to disturb him, but she didn't know who else to ask. And then came the words that turned his world on its axis, words so delicate yet filled with fear. "Sir, my mommy's crying in the bathroom. If you believe the world still needs kindness, compassion, and second chances, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps more stories like this reach people who might need them." Aiden blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. A child in his building, crying mother, in the bathroom? He was a man buried in mergers and losses, not emotions, but something about the fragile desperation in that small voice pierced the armor he had spent a lifetime constructing. He opened the door and found a little girl, no more than 7, standing there with damp curls clinging to her forehead, her tiny shoes soaked from the rain as if she had walked through a flood to get here. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with worry, and she clutched a backpack with cartoon rabbits drawn on it. She looked painfully out of place against the corporate steel and silence. Her name, she said in a whisper, was Lily. He asked her where her mother was, and she pointed down the hall with a trembling hand. Her mother, she explained, worked here. She was an assistant. She had been crying for a long time but didn't want Lily to hear, so she had asked her daughter to wait quietly. But Lily couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. She had heard her mother whispering apologies to the bathroom air, telling someone who wasn't there that she was trying, that she was failing, that she didn't know how to keep going. Lily had overheard enough to become frightened, so she walked to the only person she thought could help, the man whose name she saw on the door every morning when her mother brought her to work because she couldn't afford childcare. Aiden followed Lily down the hallway. He pushed the bathroom door gently, and the sound that escaped made his stomach twist. A woman sobbing, broken, exhausted, defeated. He had heard crying before, of course, but this wasn't ordinary. This was the sound of someone drowning silently. Lily's mother, whose employee badge read Elena, was curled near the sinks, shoulders shaking, her hand pressed over her mouth as if trying to keep the world from hearing her pain. Her mascara smudged, her blouse wrinkled, her breaths uneven. And in that moment, Aiden realized that she wasn't just tired, she was breaking. He spoke softly, telling her he was there to help. She jolted up, horrified that her CEO was seeing her like this. She tried to apologize while wiping her face with trembling hands. She tried to gather her dignity like shattered glass pieces scattered across the floor. But the truth tumbled out of her anyway. She was behind on rent. Her ex-husband hadn't paid child support in months. She had been threatened with eviction that very morning. She had rushed to work, pretending everything was normal, but when she stepped into the bathroom, her strength simply ran out. She didn't want to lose her job. She didn't want Lily to see her collapse. She didn't know what else to do. Aiden felt something unfamiliar twisting inside him, a mix of anger at the world and an ache he recognized from long ago. A time when he too had watched someone he loved fall apart behind a closed door, but he pushed that memory aside. This moment wasn't about him. He helped Elena to her feet, walked her to his office with Lily by her side, and asked her to sit. She protested weakly, insisting she didn't want special treatment, but he assured her that this wasn't about special treatment. This was about being human. He gave her space to breathe, offering water, tissues, and the time she needed to steady her shaking hands. Lily climbed into her mother's lap, wrapping small arms around her shoulders, whispering that she was brave. Elena held her daughter tightly, the last of her defenses crumbling as she realized that someone finally had seen her. Not as an assistant, not as a struggling single mother, but as a person. In that quiet office, with rain streaking the windows like trembling fingers, Aiden made a decision that surprised even him. He excused himself and stepped out, asking his assistant to clear the rest of his day. For the first time in 2 years, he canceled every meeting, postponed every conference call, and silenced every demand that usually controlled him. He walked back into the office with a sense of resolve he hadn't felt in ages. He asked Elena to tell him everything, every burden she had been carrying alone, every fear that kept her awake at night, every struggle she had been hiding. At first, she hesitated, but her exhaustion overpowered her pride. She told him about the skyrocketing rent, the medical bills from Lily's asthma, the rising cost of groceries, and the days she skipped meals so her daughter didn't have to. She told him about the sleepless nights spent trying to balance life and work, about the guilt of bringing her daughter to the office but having no other choice, about the humiliating phone calls from debt collectors. She tried to hold back tears, but they broke through again. Aiden listened, really listened, in a way he rarely allowed himself to. The longer she spoke, the more he realized how deeply unfair her situation was. Not because she lacked ability or determination, but because life had taken pieces from her faster than she could replace them. She was battling storms alone while the world kept moving as if her struggles were invisible. When she finally finished, her voice barely above a whisper, silence filled the room like a held breath. Aiden looked at her, at Lily, at the way they leaned into each other, and something inside him shifted. He told her she wasn't alone anymore. Her job was secure. Her position would be upgraded. Her salary would be adjusted. Arranged emergency financial support through the company's hardship program, something most employees didn't even know existed, because no one ever had the courage to ask. He told her that childcare assistance was possible, that flexible hours could be arranged, that she could take the afternoon off to rest and breathe without fear. Elena covered her mouth with trembling hands, overwhelmed. She whispered that she didn't deserve this. Aiden gently told her that compassion wasn't about deserving, it was about humanity, and humanity was something the world desperately needed more of. Over the next several weeks, the office changed in ways no one expected. Aiden requested a full review of employee support programs. He implemented mental health days, flexible schedules for parents, and financial counseling services. He ordered the HR department to create a confidential line for struggling employees. He asked managers to undergo training on empathy and crisis recognition. The company shifted from a place where people hid their burdens to a place where they could finally breathe. Elena, slowly but surely, began to reclaim her strength. Her smile, not the forced one she had worn for years, but a real, soft, genuine one, returned. Her work improved not because she feared losing her job, but because she finally felt seen. Lily became known throughout the office, the little girl with a bright backpack and a brighter heart. People remembered how she had walked into the CEO's office that day with courage far larger than her tiny shoes. She became a quiet symbol of hope, proof that even a child could spark change in a world ruled by pressure and deadlines. But something else changed to Aiden himself. For years, he had lived behind a wall of perfection. He had lost his wife in a tragic accident 3 years earlier, and in his grief, he had buried himself in work. He hadn't allowed himself to feel, to connect, to care beyond spreadsheets and stock values. But Elena and Lily reminded him of something he had forgotten. People weren't numbers. People were stories. Stories filled with struggle, love, loss, and unspoken battles. And sometimes, all they needed was one moment of compassion to shift their entire world. As weeks turned into months, the company transformed from a cold corporate machine into a community. People supported each other. Productivity soared not from fear, but from loyalty and gratitude. The board noticed, investors noticed. But Aiden barely cared about that part. What mattered to him was that when he walked through the halls now, he saw faces, not masks worn for survival. Near the end of the year, the company hosted a small gathering to celebrate the new policies and the positive changes they had brought. Employees shared stories, some heartbreaking, some inspiring, about how the support had changed their lives. Elena stood at the back of the room, holding Lily's hand. She wasn't the same woman who had cried silently in the bathroom months earlier. She stood taller, stronger, and when Aiden's eyes met hers across the room, they exchanged a quiet understanding, gratitude, respect, humanity. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You never know who might need to hear something encouraging today. Before the gathering ended, Aiden took the stage. He didn't talk about profits or growth charts. Instead, he spoke about compassion, about the unseen battles people fight, about how one small voice, one child's trembling plea had changed an entire company. The room fell silent as he told them that kindness wasn't weakness. Kindness was leadership, kindness was strength, and kindness had saved him too, in more ways than anyone knew. He ended with a simple message: you never know whose life you're changing when you choose to care. And as you watch this story unfold, take a moment to comment below. Do you believe one act of kindness can change someone's entire world? Elena held Lily close, tears in her eyes, not from pain this time, but from hope. Aiden stepped down from the stage, and for the first time in years, he felt his heart truly breathe. And in that moment, in a world too often hardened by stress and struggle, one simple truth stood out. Sometimes the greatest change begins with the smallest voice saying, "My mommy needs help."